Trent, again, superhuman stuff from Justin Fields for large portions of that game. Tell us about the good. I want to ask you a little bit about the fourth quarter and how much of that is on him, but let's start with the superhuman and your double pluses and the stuff that you liked to see from Justin yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, he started off really well. They had a lot of design runs early, which they're obviously adding on to that. In fact, somebody handed me a stat today. Last 4 games, 31 design quarterback runs for 245 yards. The previous 18 games are only 38 design runs for him for 83 yards. So they're obviously putting a huge point of emphasis on the quarterback-driven run game. I thought he threw the ball, for the most part, pretty crisply early in the game. He did his normal. There was a plus play. Where is this? End of the first quarter, avoids a sack. I really like the movement throw to Komet when he's moving left. He kind of has to layer a ball over a defender. Looked pretty easy, but it was a tough play. He did have a bad sack in the first half and a bad throw to Pringle. But besides that, he was pretty clean. And then the short yardage touchdown, his ability, they call a pass in the flat. It's covered. He's whirly dervishes around and then finishes with violence in the end zone. I thought that was a pretty spectacular play. And then, the second half, a lot of non-graded plays. And then you have the double minus, his first one in 3 weeks with the horrible interception, follows it with the double plus on the superhuman run. And then that last drive, we can dive into that a little bit more as we go on.
Let's stay on the scheme for a second before we get to that last drive. The quarterback designed runs, it's interesting because against Miami, they didn't do many early. They faked it a lot and used the fear of it as they schemed. And then here yesterday, they did do it a lot in the first batch of plays there. So, I mean, that's play calling, right? So they'll kind of toy with that as we go. Overall, in terms of the physicality, did Justin seem to take more of a physical beating yesterday than he has in previous weeks?
Nothing jumped out. I mean, obviously, the last play of the game, he gets roughed up a little bit. I think he took one other hard hit and then the touchdown run. Nothing egregious. I don't think he's putting himself at risk. To get back to the design stuff, they're obviously making a point of emphasis because now they added, like a midline play, which is now you're not blocking an interior lineman and reading an interior lineman on an edge defender. I think a lot of it was done because of Hutchinson. He's such a dynamic player. They wanted to slow him down. If you notice, Justin made, I don't know, was it 3 or 4 really nice throws where he had tons of time in the pocket? That's partly a result of the quarterback-driven runs and the fly game that we've talked about since week 1. The fly game, the quarterback-driven runs make defensive linemen pause. They can't play upfield. They have to play flat at the line of scrimmage. And this is why you see so many college teams do it. It's why you see so many high school teams do it, because you typically can't pass protect very well in high school and college, somewhat like the Bears offensive line. So what you do is you put tools in your toolkit, quarterback-driven runs, fly sweeps, screens. They ran 3 tight end screens. One of them, it was an interception. It was the horrible interception. But you do these things so that teams can't rush you, so that they can't come up the field, so that when you do need to throw it, you should have some more time, especially on balance downs, first and second down, not in that must-throw situation. So there is a cumulative effect of this investment in the quarterback run game. And it allows him, even on the bad ones, like there was a couple that he didn't get a lot. He still got 4. There was a couple that Montgomery or Herbert, he gave the ball to, and the defensive end or the edge player sitting there waiting for Justin, and it gave the back a nice little inside track to go 3 or 4 even before contact. I mean, if you can block in the NFL 3 before contact, you're winning every snap. So there's a lot of positives in this offense. The most disappointing thing is when they had to just kick a field goal. They couldn't move the ball.
And one way I've been describing the Bears' offensive adjustment to folks here throughout this season, and kind of going back to I watched and covered all of Justin's games in college while he was at Ohio State, and obviously your relationship with him goes back extremely far. By comparison to some of these other guys who are extremely just explosive athletes as quarterbacks with the football in their hands, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray. These are guys who have spent the majority of their quarterback play, extending plays, improvising, almost in some ways seeming to prefer to go off script. My impression of Justin has been that he's never really been that guy who prefers to go beyond the scripted portion of the play. He's capable of it. And I feel like we're watching him grow as an improviser in what we're seeing in the Bears adding some of those elements to the offense. How accurate is that just in Justin of what he was in the past and what he's growing into now?
I mean this, I think that's brilliant analysis. It's better than I would have come up with. It's a great way of saying it. Justin has been, even in high school, was a guy that wants to play on script. He wants to play within the structure of the offense. Now, the structure of that offense has to allow him to use his horsepower and athleticism. I think he's always wanted that. And I think Ohio State did that with him as well. But yeah, you're talking about like the bounce around in the pocket, spin out of something, climb back up in the pocket, keep your eyes down. Feel like there was a lot of nuance in that off-scripted stuff that I think you got to work on that. I think he's probably working on that midweek. I made a comment, I don't know, may have been Colin Coward, I can't remember, that, you can see a really good process during the week with Getsy and Justin and the team, like the whole offensive staff and the quarterback, like their process Monday through Saturday. And this is probably going to sound esoteric to a lot of you, but I've been in the building, like what you do on those days, if you do it right, translates to a Sunday game. And you're seeing what I'm interpreting as a really good process because we're seeing growth in different areas every week. Now, are we seeing the whole thing put together? I wouldn't say the whole thing's been put together yet, but we're seeing it layered, one element layered on top of another each week. And that's why I'm still very, very bullish on Justin, maybe not the Bears, but very bullish on Justin right now.
So it's good stuff. We've hinted at it. What do you think happened in the fourth quarter, especially that last time when it's 2 minutes and you've got 3 timeouts and you really just need to drive for a field goal? I got to tell you, Trent, I'm watching that and still I feel like, God, the man's been able to make so many plays. This is maybe the first time all year where I'm like, yeah, you could have driven them and gone ahead and just got that win, and he didn't. Is it fair to put anything on Justin in that sequence?
I actually think it is, yeah. The nature of the position is a little unfair, okay? So the nature of playing quarterback in the NFL, especially in the modern day era where it's so easy to get yards, it's if you don't perform, if you don't execute in that situation, I think if you're any starting quarterback, you have to ask the question why. Like there's a lot of cheese out there on NFL fields right now to get, meaning free yards. And when you can't get any in that situation, I think you definitely have to take a really close look in the mirror on why. It starts with the first throw to Claypool. It's a terrible throw. I know he's trying to throw a back shoulder. I know it's a one-on-one matchup, but those situations, and you're going to hear this theme, you have to be willing to throw guys open. You can't throw hope passes. Like, I hope he catches this. I'm going to kind of put it in the general vicinity and hope he stops and catches. Like, that is a 6'3", 6'4" target running 50-50 with a smaller corner. You should be able 9 out of 10 times to put that 8.5, 9 feet in the air on his helmet where he can make a play or get a pass interference. So I actually almost double minus that because of the situation. That was the 2nd and 5 call. Then it's kind of just, you get the holding call on the incompletion to Montgomery. You get
it's the Ryan Griffin holding call, which is borderline. Yep.
And I didn't show a replay on the NFL Network condensed version that I watched, so I couldn't comment on whether it was a good call or not. The sack to the Hutchinson sack on 2nd and 10. I was actually looking for something negative, like did he have a quick throw? Could he have gotten the ball out of his hand? And he really didn't. I didn't see an all 22, but I could kind of tell by the route concept, and I could see the back getting out of the backfield. He really didn't have a chance to get the ball out there. That's just Aiden Hutchinson making a great play. And then you got to, and here's what I think it all comes down to. It's the 2nd and 5 play, and it's the 4th and 8 play. You have to, the graduate level part of NFL quarterbacking is situational awareness with throwing guys open. You don't necessarily want to try to throw a guy open on 1st and 10 in an even game. right? You're taking too much of a risk. But you got to understand when it's the last play of the game, it's the biggest play of the season, so to speak. You have to be willing to pull the trigger and make a professional throw in man coverage to a guy that's probably not open,
Right.
but you can throw him open. And I thought Sanchez made an under the breath kind of comment about he could have ripped it to Pringle. Again, I did not see the all 22, but you could see that all the receivers had an edge on their defenders. And there's a throw to be made there instead of trying to move around, jump in the pocket, extend the play. That's where he's got to understand the situation and let this thing rip. And I got to make a big time throw in this moment.
Yeah, that's a big moment. So, and it's fair. As you say, the position itself is unfair. So acknowledging that, but still talking about what Justin could have done to develop seems important. Here's the question then, Trent. Does it matter? Does that failure yesterday affect anything long-term? Would success have affected anything long-term? Like, is it important? Is it worth rooting for him to start building up an inventory of success in moments like that? The sooner the better.
Well, it'll be nice. I mean, it'd be dumb to say it's not important. Yes, it would be a value add if you went down there, went on a really nice drive, and they kick a 22-yarder to win the game with 3 seconds to go. Like, that would be awesome. I'm not even not that I'm not a Bears fan, but I'm not like actively rooting for the Bears every week. And I would be excited about that. Like, that would be really cool. I root for quarterbacks to have those experiences. That he didn't do it, no. I think in Justin's progression right now, there's no losses, there's only learning. And I know that sounds cheesy. It sounds like it's out of a John Gordon book, but it's true.
I think it is.
Like it's actually true. Like right now with the salary cap situation, with trading away some players, with building a foundation like we've talked about in rock, in stone, knowing that your nice appliances and your fancy art and your cool paint, your patio, all that's coming next year. Like, all you really want out of this is that Justin continues to learn. And this goes back to the stuff bucket. That's why we started the very first week with the buckets. As long as that stuff bucket stays overflowing, as long as the playmaker bucket stays overflowing, which we've seen both of those buckets continue to overflow, that the middle drop back passer bucket, the 2-minute quarterback bucket, the critical situation bucket, yeah, I wish they were there. If he was there, it'd be a Pro Bowler. But they're going to come. And it leads me to what I think the bigger conversation is when do you go away from the 20 to 26 throws a game to the 30 to 36 throws a game? Mm-hmm. When do you start lowering the volume of runs? They're an unbelievable run team, and they've done a really nice job. And some are going to say, what are you talking about, Trent? Look at, we're making historic rushing numbers.
30 points a game.
30 points a game. I get all that, right? I totally get all that. But if you're trying to win a Super Bowl, right? You're trying to win a Super Bowl next year or the year after, at some point, we need to add 100 to 150 throws to Justin's season this year so that he can have more learning moments. I actually wouldn't mind seeing here's what got me thinking about it. I only graded 16 plays. Is that right? No, 14 plays. My math's terrible. I only graded 14 plays. They had, I'm looking right here, total plays. If I can even read without my glasses, how many total plays do they have?
I think total
just under 60 was it? Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
61 so total snaps for the offense.
You're only grading 14 plays out of 61. If it's truly quarterback driven, then I should be grading 25 to 30 plays because it's like that was a fantastic plus throw. Like he threw somebody open or that was a turd rocket. That's a minus throw. But I want to be able to grade a lot of throws. Like we want to see him develop as a thrower, knowing that the only way you can win a Super Bowl is to throw your team into the end zone, throw your team first downs, to throw your way in 2-minute drills, to throw your team into a situation to win the game when everything's on the line. I think the conversation at least needs to start. Okay, we're still trying to win. We're still going to run the ball. We're still going to protect our offensive line, but we need to see, let's say, 6 to 8 more next week. Maybe in 3 weeks, it's 10 to 12 more, but we got to see him throw the football more so he has more learning lessons throwing it.
Trent Dilfer, our guest here on the Parkins Spiegel Show on Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score. Anthony Herron filling in for Danny Parkins alongside Matt Spiegel. And one of the comps that I viewed Justin Herbert in a similar way when he came out of Oregon as a guy who just had this unbelievable hose and could throw a super accurate deep ball and could make it look effortless while he did it, but there wasn't a lot of finesse and nuance to the passing that Justin Herbert did at Oregon. And so I wondered, how quickly will he be able to be a more anticipatory thrower? How quickly will he develop with some of the nuance as a passer? That came along for Herbert far more quickly than I anticipated. I'm wondering, do you feel like that, as far as the system Justin came out of it and where his strengths were as a passer, is that an accurate comp, and why, in some ways, has Herbert developed so quickly in that regard?
Very accurate. By the way, you guys don't need me anymore. Just have Anthony do the analysis every week.
BS, Dilfer. You know stuff.
You got the dimes.
It's probably a lot cheaper than me, too.
And he'd probably mention us on every national show.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
I think that's actually, and I actually know something about this because I have 3 really good friends that were on that Chargers staff when Herbert got drafted. And they made a decision early on that he was not a very good quick game passer yet. And he was okay intermediate, but he was exceptional on anything 20 yards down the field or more. He saw it better. He was the niftiness in the deep drops that kind of make a guy miss or climb up in the pocket or shed and still push the ball down the field. And what they did was they built like 4 vertical concepts that were very flexible that you could change up every week. Double corner over, post corner over, dive in, sail back to the corner. Dive in over, back to the sail route, like these big chunk vertical concepts. And they just committed to them. They said, we might not be very efficient, but we're going to be explosive. And this kid can chuck it.
He can rip it. Yeah.
He can rip it. And he developed as a passer the more they allowed him to pass. Here's another really interesting thing, and I don't know if the Bears allow people at practice. It is shocking how few times some NFL teams throw it in practice. Like shocking. I've been around a few staffs that if you had 20 impactful throws in a day of practice, that was a lot. It's crazy. And to give a comparison, tomorrow is our big day here in high school, and I always make sure my quarterback has at least 45 impactful throws in a script. 45.
And when you're saying impactful throws, you're meaning like intermediate, deep balls, levels, concepts?
Yeah. Meaningful. They have to read something, have some technique, and show some arm talent to make them happen. Not bubble screens, not perimeter, not this and that, but the ball has to be in the air. You got to be reading coverage. You got to be fitting it into spots. You got to be anticipating, yada, yada, yada. And I'm wondering if they're throwing it enough in practice, because it's really hard to invest in this type of quarterback-driven run game and throw it a lot in practice. So I think a big piece of this, going back to your Herbert conversation, is what the Chargers did was they committed to it. They made their run game very simple. If you go back, they were a power team, a duo team, and I think a counter team, if I can remember correctly. So it was pretty simple run game. And then they chucked it. They went off those run games. They had action passes off of them, and they pushed the ball down the field, and you saw his progression change rapidly. Now, I don't think you go wholesale change. Please, don't hear me wrong. I like what the Bears are doing. I've been bragging on Getty for a while now. I just think there's this like little compartment over here, and it's practice and games, and that we're going to make sure we're growing this compartment from 10% to 18%, then 22%, and like 26%. And what that compartment is let's fall in love with something that Mooney, Claypool, Kmet, that triangle does really well. And it's down the field. And let's use this dynamic run game to find more action protections, because one of the action protections they haven't used yet is the naked stay. And the naked stay is a way you can extend time in the pocket. You pretend like it's boot naked, but instead of releasing that guy, he's now blocking the edge. The Niners do a good job. I would study 49ers film, right, on how to protect this. And then I would activate those 3 players down the field in a triangle, maybe 2 ways. I have these 2 concepts, and they complement each other. One's like 2 ins with an over, and one's 2 outs with a reverse bender, something like that. Just say, we're going to doctor up every week, and we're going to take 5 of these a game because we're going to run the ball well. And now we can action stay Now it's a big, heavy, thick protection with a flat defensive line because they're so scared of all the run game stuff. And now we're going to see him push the ball down the field.
Well, they've shown that they believe in Justin. Ryan Poles with some more comments this weekend, proud of the progression, etc. So now, yeah, we're talking about using these last 7 games. They have these 2 receivers, Equanimeous St. Brown and Dante Pettis, who they use the most. Those guys had the most snaps of any wide receivers yesterday, the biggest percentage, and they're good blockers. They're guys they use in an intricate run game. So maybe those snap counts go down over the next few weeks to coincide with the open up that you're talking about.
I'd agree with that. And there's also there's one more way you could do this because of how they're formatted their offense. You can start implementing more bluff concepts. You saw the Komet touchdown where they bluff the arc zone read play, and then Komet bluffs the alley defender and goes vertical. You can start doing that. Like, again, offense now, today's football is so creative. I mean, you have so much fun with creating stuff. And that's another way of being vertical without taking a lot of time is I always say, make them take the bait. Make them take the bait on these receivers that are physical blockers, pretending like they're blocking, and then they run bluff routes or joker routes. That's another way to create explosives. Maybe that's the easiest way to say it, just for the basic fan, is the explosives right now are coming out of the run game. They got to start coming out of the pass game. You saw the one to Komet, the 50-something yarder. That was kind of a naked pull-up throwback. But we got to see more of these vertical elements into the offense to start seeing Justin develop as a passer.